I'm Ila Monroe, 27 years old, and I never imagined I'd be the one to bring my family to their knees. Picture this: a Sunday dinner, the kind that's supposed to feel warm and cozy. But something was off. My mom's smile was too wide, almost manic. My dad cracked jokes that usually fell flat, and my Brooke Sutton Brooke kept calling me the best Brooke Sutton in the world, 3 times in an hour. The hairs on my neck prickled as I noted every forced laugh, every flicker of unease. When dessert hit the table, I felt a snap inside me. I let out a hollow laugh that cut through the air, silencing everyone. "I'm done with all of you." They shouted back, "For what?" With ice in my veins, I shot back, "I know what you're plotting against me." Their faces drained of color, pale as sheets. Growing up in suburban Philadelphia, I was always the practical one. I graduated with honors in finance from Northeastern University and landed a job as a forensic accountant at a top firm. By 25, I had my own 2-bedroom apartment in Back Bay, something my parents took years to achieve. Our family was the envy of the neighborhood, the kind that looked perfect during backyard barbecues and holiday gatherings. But beneath that shiny surface lay a tangled web of competition, resentment, and control that had shaped our lives since childhood. My mom, Ila Monroe, was the unofficial CEO of our family. A former corporate executive who traded her career for motherhood, she poured her perfectionism into micromanaging our lives. Nothing was ever good enough unless it was done her way. As I sat there, the scent of roast chicken mingling with something sour, I couldn't shake the feeling that betrayal was simmering right beside the mashed potatoes. Was I just paranoid, or was something darker lurking beneath the surface? The tension in the room was thick, like the air before a storm. I could feel it pressing down on me, heavy and suffocating. What was my family hiding? And why did it feel like I was the only one who could see it? Stay tuned as I unravel the twisted plot that turned my family against me. She had perfected the art of the backhanded compliment. My mom could deliver criticism wrapped in sweet concern, leaving you grateful for the sting. "Cassandra, honey, that blouse is so brave of you. Not many people would wear that color with your complexion." Or, "Your apartment is certainly cozy. Some people prefer small spaces. They're easier to clean." My dad, Richard Monroe, was her perfect counterpart. A corporate attorney specializing in conflict resolution, he brought his skills home, becoming the family peacemaker. He avoided confrontation like the plague, smoothing over tensions with jokes and changing the subject when things got heated. While this kept the peace on the surface, it enabled my mom's controlling behavior. "Your mom means well," he'd whisper after particularly cutting remarks. "Just let it go, Cass. You know how she gets when challenged." Then there was my Brooke Sutton Brooke, 2 years younger but always positioned as the crown jewel. Where I was analytical and reserved, Brooke was charismatic and social. She majored in communications, worked in public relations, and had a knack for taking credit for my achievements while minimizing her own shortcomings. "Did you know Cassandra got that scholarship because I introduced her to my professor friend?" She once told relatives at Thanksgiving, completely fabricating a connection that had nothing to do with my academic success. The family dynamic had grown increasingly strained over the past year as my career took off. I received a substantial promotion, making me one of the youngest senior forensic accountants at my firm. The partners even mentioned a potential partnership track in a few years, something almost unheard of for someone my age. But as I stood on the balcony, the city sprawled below me. Neon lights flickering like my racing thoughts, a stray notification pinged. It was a voice memo from my dad, not meant for me. It was for my mom, promising loyalty and strategy. My breath caught. Beneath the silk of family jokes lay an unspoken alliance. The air felt heavier, and suddenly, my isolation wasn't imagined. This secret pact warped my view of every past kindness and casual insult. Was I just paranoid, or was something darker lurking beneath the surface? The tension in the room was thick, like the air before a storm. What was my family hiding? And why did it feel like I was the only one who could see it? Stay tuned as I unravel the twisted plot that turned my family against me. My growing financial independence and professional success created a subtle power shift that my mom in particular seemed to resent. My parents had always expected to be the ones to help me, not the other way around. When I offered to help them refinance their mortgage to a better rate using my banking connections, my mom refused outright. "We have managed our finances for decades without your help, Cassandra." She had set a tight smile on her face. "Perhaps focus on your own future. You know how quickly things can change in this economy." The gaslighting and emotional manipulation had been present throughout my childhood, but I had only recently begun to recognize the patterns. Comments about my appearance, subtle digs at my social life, or lack thereof, constant comparisons to Brooke Sutton, or cousins who had settled down properly with husbands and children instead of focusing on careers. The recent strange behavior had started about 3 months ago. I would call home and hear hushed voices in the background that would suddenly stop. Text conversations would abruptly end when I asked about certain topics. Twice I had walked into rooms at my parents' house to find them hunched over papers that were quickly shuffled away. My Brooke Sutton had become unusually interested in my work schedule, asking repeatedly when I would be traveling for audits or working late. She had never shown interest in my career before, typically glazing over whenever I mentioned anything finance-related. "Do you have to go into the office this weekend?" she would ask. Or, "How flexible is your vacation time? Can you just take days off whenever you want?" Then came the invitation to a special family dinner last Sunday. My mom had called, insisting that everyone needed to be there, that they had something important to discuss. Her voice had that forced cheerfulness that always spelled trouble. "We just want to spend time together, darling." A chill cut straight through Layla as she stepped onto the porch. The glow of every light cast distorted shadows along the brick walk. Her phone buzzed, but she hesitated. Everyone she expected was already here. The kitchen window, usually shut tight, stood slightly ajar, leaking muted voices she couldn't quite make out. Was this just heightened family tension, or the first move in a plan she should never have ignored? It had been too long since they all sat down for a proper meal. As a forensic accountant, I'm trained to spot inconsistencies, to follow paper trails, to notice when numbers or people don't add up. Something about this dinner invitation felt off from the start, like pieces of a puzzle that appeared to fit but left gaps when pressed together. I arrived at the dinner with my guard up, my professional suspicion engaged. Little did I know, my instincts were about to be proven right in ways even I couldn't have anticipated. The evening of the special family dinner arrived on a crisp autumn Sunday. I pulled into the driveway of my parents' colonial-style house in Lexington, the same home I had grown up in. Immediately I noticed unusual details. Both my parents' cars were parked in the driveway rather than the garage, as if making room for something, or someone, else. The porch lights were all on, not just the main one, creating an overly welcoming glow that felt forced rather than inviting. I straightened my blazer, a habit from work when entering tense negotiations, and approached the front door. Before I could even knock, it swung open to reveal my mom, dressed in a formal navy dress I had only seen her wear at charity galas. "Layla, darling, right on time, as always," she gushed, pulling me into a perfume-heavy embrace that lasted several seconds too long. "Everyone is already here waiting for you." The house smelled of pot roast and freshly baked rolls, my favorite meal from childhood. I noted this calculated touch as I followed her through the foyer into the formal dining room, a space typically reserved for Thanksgiving and Christmas, not casual Sunday dinners. The table was set with the Wedgwood china that had belonged to my grandmother, pieces usually kept locked in a display cabinet and brought out only for the most special occasions. As I took my seat, I felt the weight of their gazes. My Brooke Sutton, Brooke, sat across from me, her eyes darting nervously. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I could almost hear the rustle of leaves outside, a reminder of the storm brewing within these walls. What were they hiding? What was this dinner really about? The tension was palpable, and I could sense the carefully crafted facade beginning to crack. I had to stay sharp. I had to uncover the truth. But as the first course was served, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. Crystal wine glasses sparkled under the dimmed chandelier, casting a warm glow that felt almost too intimate. As I stepped into the dining room, my dad stood up, breaking from his usual weekend routine. "There she is, our financial wizard," he announced, his voice booming with exaggerated pride. He pulled out my chair, a gesture that felt oddly formal. "We were just saying how lucky we are to have such a brilliant daughter, right, Brooke?" My Brooke Sutton, Brooke, sat across from me, dressed in a pink dress I'd never seen before. Her hair was freshly highlighted, styled to perfection. She looked up, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Absolutely," she chirped, her voice a pitch higher than usual. The best Brooke Sutton anyone could ask for. "I was just telling Mom and Dad how much I admire your dedication to your career." But I knew better. Brooke had spent years mocking my job, calling me the family calculator. I settled into my seat, the weight of their gazes heavy on my shoulders. "What's the occasion?" I asked, cutting through the charade. "Does there need to be an occasion to celebrate family?" Mom replied, bringing in a bottle of expensive Cabernet Sauvignon, clearly beyond their usual budget. Dinner unfolded with stilted conversation. Dad cracked jokes that would normally be off-limits at family gatherings. Mom insisted I take seconds before anyone else had finished their firsts. Brooke kept probing about my apartment, my schedule, my future. "Have you thought about your next steps?" she asked, twirling pasta around her fork without actually eating it. "Career-wise, do you think you'll stay at your current firm forever?" "I'm happy where I am," I replied carefully, but unease churned in my stomach. Then my attention snapped from the gleaming glass to Brooke's manicured hands gripping a folded piece of paper beneath the table. The air around us tightened. My stomach dropped as her gaze flickered not to me, but beyond, toward the barely open study door. A sudden realization struck. Every word tonight was a performance for someone else, someone listening. The softness in the room curdled into suspicion, a trap veiled as affection. What were they hiding? What was this dinner really about? I had to stay sharp. I had to uncover the truth. But, as the first course was served, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. The tension in the air was palpable. I could feel it tightening around my throat. "The partnership track is opening up sooner than expected," my dad said, desperation lacing his every word. "But surely you want more work-life balance." Mom jumped in, her voice smooth like oil, but didn't match the sudden nervous flicker in her eyes. "That apartment of yours, so much space for just one person. Such a waste, really." "It's not a waste if it's what I want." My voice was firm, but I could see the panic dance behind my dad's gaze as he exchanged a brief, worried look with her. Then Brooke Sutton, my mom, left the room and returned with an unexpected flourish, placing something by my plate. "Just a little something to show how much we appreciate you," she beamed, her eyes glimmering with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I peeled open the wrapping to reveal an expensive watch. Splendid, shiny, far more extravagant than anything Brooke Sutton could afford on her PR salary. I forced a smile, my chest constricting as unease settled in. As I slipped the watch onto my wrist, the room hummed with a brittle kind of warmth. But that warmth melted away when Mom stepped into the kitchen to prepare dessert. I caught her phone flash, a quick message she angled away instinctively. Just moments later, my dad's phone chimed and they exchanged a look so loaded with secrets, alarm bells exploded in my mind. "To new beginnings and the changes coming our way," Dad said, raising his glass for another toast. "Family is everything, and sometimes we need to make difficult decisions for the people we love most." "What changes?" I pressed, my voice stronger than I felt. The question caught him off guard. "You know, life changes." He stammered. Brooke Sutton might be getting a promotion. Your mom is thinking about reopening her consulting business. Life evolves. Just then, I caught a whisper from the kitchen. Not yet, Mom said, her voice slicing through the air. We need to wait until after we talk to Dr. Harrison tomorrow. Timing is everything with these situations, but the paperwork needs to be filed by Friday if we want to move forward with the plan, Dad added, his words low but heavy with implications. Those words hung in the air like a storm about to break. What had they planned? Why was I in the dark? My heart raced, navigating the shadows of their manipulations. It was almost too clear. This wasn't just a family dinner, it was a stage set for betrayal, veiled in generous gestures and forced smiles. I knew then. I couldn't be just a bystander in this twisted play. I had to uncover the truth, for my freedom, and for my self-respect. They fell silent immediately when I entered with the stack of dinner plates. During dessert, a rich chocolate cake that had always been reserved for special celebrations. Brooke Sutton kept checking her phone under the table. When I managed to glimpse the screen, I saw she was texting someone named Dr. H about C's situation and next steps after dinner. My mom steered the conversation toward my work hours, asking pointed questions about how I manage stress. You work such long hours, darling. Does the firm offer any support for you? Who know mental wellness? These high-pressure jobs can take such a toll. I am fine, I said firmly. My mental wellness is excellent. Thank you for your concern. Well, you never know when these things can creep up on you, she persisted. Your cousin Beth, you remember she had that breakdown in college. No one saw it coming either. As they served coffee, my dad made an odd comment that crystallized all my suspicions into a single, horrifying realization. Your mom and I have been thinking, Cassandra, that apartment of yours represents such a significant financial commitment. If you ever felt like you needed a change, needed to step back from the pressures for a while, you could always come home. Your old room is still there. We could help you manage the sale or even just rent it out while you regroup. The pieces suddenly locked into place. The unusual attention, the gifts, the questions about my schedule and mental health, the secretive texts, the comments about my apartment, the mention of paperwork and doctors. They thought I was having some kind of breakdown. Or worse, they were planning to convince others I was having one. My apartment, my finances, my independence were all at risk. Something inside me snapped. The careful, analytical professional gave way to raw, wounded anger. I sat down my coffee cup with deliberate calm. This has been lovely, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. The chandelier flickered, casting nervous shadows on the walls. Just then, a door creaked open behind Ila Monroe. A silent figure emerged, gripping a watch all too familiar, one she'd seen earlier on her dad's wrist. The room froze. Tension thick in the air. Layla's heart thundered. Was betrayal deeper than she imagined? Did the shadows hold secrets her family hid? And was she the next target? In the dining room, the rich aroma of chocolate cake hung like a bitter reminder of her past. Her family had always painted a picture of love and unity. But today, that mask cracked. You're fine, right? Her mom had nudged as if probing for flaws, as if her independence was a fragile bubble ready to burst. But tonight was different. As she sipped her coffee, Layla felt the weight of their gaze. Every compliment turned sour, every question a careful trap. I know what you are plotting against me. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Gasps echoed off the walls as her mom's laughter faded, replaced by unease. Cassandra, what do you mean? No, this isn't a nice family dinner, Layla snapped, her voice unwavering. She methodically laid out her evidence, like a detective unveiling a case. Dad, you never wear that jacket. Mom, you checked your phone 12 times. Brooke Sutton, why the sudden interest in my job? Each word struck harder, igniting sparks of disbelief in their eyes. Sweetheart, you're reading too much into things, her dad stammered. Am I? She shot back, her pulse quickening. Why suggest I sell my apartment? Why talk about Cousin Beth's breakdown? The air crackled with accusations. Her mom's mask fell away, revealing steely resolve. For the first time, Layla felt the stark divide between family loyalty and self-respect. It was clear now. The plot against her didn't just come from within the walls of her home. It reached beyond them. Layla took a deep breath, grounding herself amid the storm. I am done with all of you. The declaration hung in the air, electrifying. Would she be strong enough to break free from their manipulations? Would courage lead her to the truth, or plunge her deeper into the shadows? Only time would tell as she faced her family, and herself. If you must know, we are concerned about you living alone, working those insane hours. No social life to speak of. It is not healthy, Cassandra. So your solution is to what? Have me declared incompetent? Take control of my finances. Force me into some kind of treatment, all while helping yourselves to my assets. My voice remained steady, even as my hands began to shake with suppressed fury. How dare you, my mom? Hissed genuine anger, breaking through her composed exterior. After everything we have done for you, how dare you accuse us of such things? My Brooke Sutton's approach was different. Tears welled in her eyes, the wounded innocence act she had perfected since childhood. We love you, Cass. We just want what is best for you. You have been so different lately, so paranoid and distant. Gaslighting will not work this time, I said, standing up. I know what I heard, what I saw, and I know what you are planning. My dad remained silent, his gaze fixed on the tablecloth. His refusal to make eye contact told me everything I needed to know. This dinner is over, I announced, collecting my purse. And, until you are ready to be honest about your intentions, so is our relationship. I walked out despite their protests, my mom's voice rising to that particular pitch that had always commanded obedience in our household. But I was no longer the compliant daughter they could manipulate. The drive back to my apartment was a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. Had I overreacted? Was I seeing conspiracy where there was only genuine concern? No. The evidence was too clear, too consistent with the patterns of control I had experienced throughout my life. By the time I reached my building, my phone was lighting up with texts and calls. Please come back. You misunderstood from my dad. We need to talk about this like adults from my mom. I am worried about you. This is exactly what we mean from Brooke Sutton. I silenced my phone and poured myself a generous glass of bourbon, something I rarely indulged in. My hands were still shaking, adrenaline coursing through my system as the full implications of the evening settled over me. If my family was indeed planning some kind of intervention or legal action regarding my mental competence, I needed to protect myself. As a forensic accountant, I knew exactly how vulnerable assets could be when questions of mental capacity arose. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay awake, replaying conversations from the past few months, searching for clues I might have missed. The strange phone calls that stopped when I entered rooms. The whispered conversations. My mom asking for a spare key to my apartment just in case of emergencies last month, Brooke Sutton's sudden interest in my work schedule and vacation time. By morning, my initial certainty had begun to waver under the weight of second-guessing and familial conditioning. Had I truly uncovered a plot, or was I experiencing the very paranoia they were concerned about? A text from my college friend Diane, who had attended law school and now specialized in family law, helped anchor me back in reality. Call me ASAP. Your mom reached out to me last week asking weird questions about power of attorney and temporary guardianship for a friend with an adult daughter in crisis. I did not make the connection until your text last night. This is serious, Cass. With that external confirmation, my doubts evaporated. My family was indeed planning something, and I needed to find out exactly what before they could implement it. As I showered and dressed for work, my phone rang again. This time it was Martin Cooper, a family friend and my parents' longtime neighbor. Cassandra, sorry to call so early. Your mom mentioned you left dinner upset last night. I just wanted to check if you are okay." "I am fine, Martin." "Just a misunderstanding," I replied cautiously. "Well, that is good to hear." The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating a pile of moving boxes that had never been opened. Ila Monroe sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, listening to a casual offer that felt like a ticking time bomb in her mind. Her heart raced as she processed what a family friend had just told her. Renovation plans. The unease curling in her stomach intensified. "Special project," he had said about the mysterious withdrawals. She thought about it. Would her family really go this far? Chills crept down her spine. Suddenly, the once familiar warmth of home morphed into a cold cage. Every little moment, the weird calls, her mom's insistence on a spare key, flashed before her eyes, revealing a dark enough truth. She wasn't just their daughter, she was merely a pawn in their elaborate game. Was this their twisted version of care? Or was it a cold scheme to manipulate her life? She felt the walls closing in, sensing the shadows of their intentions lurking, taunting her. Each memory gripped her like a vice. Quiet moments echoed in the room. The distant sound of rain against the window matched the turmoil within her. How had she become so blind? Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to focus. She couldn't let their plans unfold without challenge. As a forensic accountant, she thrived on unraveling deceit. No, this wasn't just about escape. It was about tactically dismantling a life blueprint she never signed up for. With renewed determination, Layla called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. She wouldn't be a silent bystander anymore. Firmly, Layla accessed her parents' accounts through the accountant's portal, eyes scanning for clues. The numbers danced on the screen, whispering secrets. 3 large withdrawals, totaling over $40,000. Each transaction unnervingly labeled Special Project. What were they planning? The pieces clicked together like a well-crafted puzzle, navigating her mind like a treacherous storm. It was time to flip the script, to reclaim her story. She was no longer going to allow herself to be swept along their predetermined path. This was the beginning of her rebellion, and she was ready for whatever would come next. Additionally, there was a check written to someone named Dr. Harrison Winters for $3,500 labeled as consultation. I searched the name online and found a psychiatrist specializing in severe anxiety disorders, delusions, and family interventions for adults with sudden onset mental health crisis. His website featured testimonials from grateful families who had reclaimed their loved ones from the brink of self-destruction. Next, I turned to social media. My Brooke Sutton had always been careless with her privacy settings. A quick browse through her saved items revealed multiple bookmarked real estate listings for apartments significantly cheaper than mine, all saved within the last month. She had also joined a private Facebook group called Supporting Loved Ones Through Mental Health Crisis 4 weeks ago. I recalled giving Brooke Sutton my laptop password months ago when she needed to check her email during a visit. On a hunch, I checked my browser history for the days she had been in my apartment. Sure enough, she had searched how to sell someone else's property with power of attorney and temporary conservatorship for mental health reasons while using my computer. The scope of their plan was becoming clearer, and it was more comprehensive than I had initially feared. This was not just about convincing me to seek help. This was about taking legal control of my finances and property. I needed more concrete evidence. Using a different email address, I contacted my parents' family lawyer under the pretense of being a new assistant at my dad's firm, asking to confirm the appointment scheduled for the following week. The receptionist helpfully informed me that Mr. and Mrs. Miller are scheduled for a consultation regarding conservatorship options on Thursday at 2 p.m. My parents' neighbor, Martin, had unwittingly provided another piece of the puzzle with his mention of renovation plans. They were preparing for me to stay with them long-term, likely after forcing me to sell or rent out my apartment. The most damning evidence came from my mom's computer. During a carefully orchestrated visit on the pretense of apologizing for my outburst, I managed to access her email while she prepared tea. There, I found draft emails to family members discussing Cassandra's situation and intervention options. One particularly chilling exchange with my aunt read, "Dr. Winters believes she may be experiencing the early stages of a delusional disorder, possibly triggered by work stress. He suggests we move quickly before it progresses further. The paperwork needs to be filed while she is still showing some awareness that her behavior is concerning." In her browser history, I found searches for an expensive private mental health facility called Lakeside Wellness Center, known for its long-term residential treatment programs. The facility's minimum stay was 90 days at a cost of $20,000 per month, easily covered by the sale of my apartment. I also discovered she had been researching medications for delusional disorders and had joined several parent support groups for adult children with sudden mental health crisis. Most disturbing of all, I found a document she had downloaded titled "Recognizing Anosognosia: When Mental Illness Prevents Insight into One's Condition." The document outlined how to handle loved ones who did not believe they were ill and provided strategies for forcing treatment despite resistance. Each discovery built upon the last, creating a clear picture of their plan. They believed or had convinced themselves to believe that I was experiencing some kind of mental health crisis. Rather than approaching me directly with their concerns, they had consulted doctors, planned legal action, and prepared to take control of my life and assets. The final confirmation came when I managed to access my Brooke Sutton's cloud storage through a shared family account. The air was thick with tension as Ila Monroe pieced together the chilling truth. She had stumbled upon a sinister plot, hidden in the shadows of her own family. As she read through the documents, a cold clarity washed over her. The room felt smaller, the hum of the refrigerator fading into the background, replaced by the pounding of her heart. She wasn't the wild card in their game. She was the target of a meticulously planned coup. Her mom's familiar handwriting now felt like a knife, marking her as the centerpiece of their scheme. Nausea surged through her as the realization hit. This intervention wasn't about concern, it was about control. Layla's heart raced as she recalled the emails she had uncovered. They spoke of her as if she were a stranger, a problem to be solved. "Dr. Winters believes she may be experiencing early signs of a delusional disorder," one email read. The words echoed in her mind, a twisted justification for their betrayal. They had plotted to take her life, her freedom, all under the guise of love. The irony was suffocating. They thought they were saving her, but in reality, they were the ones creating the crisis. As she drove through the rain-soaked streets of Philadelphia, the scent of wet pavement filled her lungs. Each drop felt like a reminder of her resolve. She had gathered evidence, emails, plans, even her Brooke Sutton's notes. This was her arsenal. If they wanted to wage war on her autonomy, they were about to meet a formidable opponent. She would turn their narrative upside down, proving she was not the unstable one. Layla's mind raced with strategies. She needed to show the world her truth, to expose their manipulation. The stakes were high, but she was ready. With every mile, her determination solidified. They thought they could control her, but they had underestimated her strength. The battle for her life was just beginning, and she was prepared to fight for her freedom and self-respect. The crisis wasn't in my mind. It was in the insidious threat hovering over my freedom. Betrayal cut deeper than I dared to admit. These were the people who professed unconditional love, the ones who should have had my back. Instead, they'd arranged to snatch away my autonomy, disguised as concern. That night, I granted myself the rare gift of feeling. A whirlwind of shock, grief, and anger crashed over me. I ordered in takeout, poured a generous glass of red wine, and let the tears flow, mourning the family I thought I understood. But the analytical side of me quickly regained control. Emotions wouldn't shield me. I needed strategy. With the echoes of rain softly tapping against my window, I sketched out a counterplan, using the meticulous methods I honed through years in financial investigations. My first call was to Dr. Lydia Martinez, my therapist of 2 years. I scheduled an emergency session, pouring out everything I uncovered. "This is deeply concerning," she said, her calm tone contrasting with the storm brewing inside me. "I've never observed any symptoms of delusional thinking in our sessions. Your responses have always been appropriate." "Would you document that?" I pressed, desperation bleeding into my voice. "Absolutely. I can prepare a formal assessment based on our history," she replied, her voice steadying my racing heart. "Your family's behavior suggests patterns of control and manipulation. I'll note that." Armed with this newfound insight, I reached out to Jordan Blackwell, a lawyer specializing in estate planning and competency issues at my firm. The evidence I'd collected lay before me like pieces of a puzzle. I delivered the facts without letting emotion seep through, trusting in my newfound mission. Just as I took a breath, the phone buzzed, vibrating against the tabletop. The screen lit up, displaying Dr. Martinez's name, but beside it, a chilling message flashed. "Call forwarding from Mom." My heart stopped. What I thought was my sanctuary was just another web of manipulation. The room felt charged. My breath stuttered, wine glass rattling, and for a split second, I felt lost. Who could I actually trust in this twisted play of shadows? The stakes were higher than I'd imagined, but I was ready. My family had underestimated me. This battle for my life was only just beginning, and I was determined to shatter their narrative and reclaim my freedom. "This is serious," Jordan confirmed, reviewing the documents. "They are building a case for temporary conservatorship, which can be granted without your presence in some circumstances. The good news is their case appears to be built on very shaky grounds." "What do I need to do?" I asked. "First, we secure your financial assets. We will set up a trust with carefully chosen trustees outside your family. Second, we gather evidence of your mental competence from multiple sources: professional colleagues, your therapist friends who can attest to your stability. Third, we document this pattern of manipulation to demonstrate that they are the ones acting inappropriately, not you." Over the next 3 days, I methodically implemented our plan. I transferred most of my liquid assets into a newly established trust with my close friend Diane and my mentor from graduate school as trustees. I obtained formal letters from my therapist, my primary care physician, and my supervisor at work, all attesting to my mental stability and professional competence. I scheduled a complete neurological and psychological evaluation with an independent specialist recommended by Jordan, resulting in a comprehensive report confirming my cognitive functioning was excellent and showing no signs of any condition that would impair my judgment. My colleague in digital forensics helped me secure recordings of phone conversations with family members in which they made leading statements about my mental state, attempting to provoke reactions they could later use against me. In one particularly telling conversation, my mom said, "Darling, we all go through difficult times. There is no shame in admitting you need help. Remember Cousin Beth? She resisted treatment too, and look how much better she is now. Mom, I do not need psychiatric help. I am perfectly fine," I responded calmly. "That is exactly what someone in denial would say," she countered, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. The clock ticked softly in the background as Ila Monroe meticulously plotted her escape from a web of deception. Each sound in her family's home, the muted hum of the fridge, the distant sound of rain against the window, felt like a ticking time bomb. She wasn't just fighting for her freedom. She was waging war against the manipulation that crept through the walls of her own house, where love twisted into something sinister. Who could she trust? Driven by ambition and the need for self-respect, she dove into the evidence, digging up lies she had once blindly accepted. Conversations, emails, texts. They painted a picture of a family that had turned into a battlefield. But just when she thought she had it all figured out, everything shifted. Layla slipped on her headphones, expecting the familiar tones of her mom's voice. But then, something changed. The sound of ice clinking in a glass broke her concentration. In that moment, her dad's voice cut in, but he wasn't addressing her. Who was he speaking to? Her heart raced as the realization hit her like a cold wave. She was just a pawn in their game. Was she the only one in this twisted play, or was her entire life a facade? The room felt like it was closing in on her. All those alliances she thought she had built were suddenly fragile. How deep did the betrayal run? Was security merely a mirage in the middle of a ruthless family power struggle? The ambient noise of her kitchen faded to nothing as she processed the depth of her isolation. Yet, even as she grappled with the vertigo of her newfound understanding, she could focus only on one goal: exposing the truth and reclaiming her life. I rehearsed my key talking points, my heart pounding with every syllable. Dr. Martinez had warned me about their tactics. "They'll call you paranoid," she said, her eyes piercing through me. I took a deep breath. "I've got this. When they say I'm overreacting, I'll calmly present what I've gathered. Without a hint of emotion, I'll say, 'I understand you believe your intentions are good, but here are the facts about my mental and financial state.'" As Sunday approached, I fine-tuned my strategy. Jordan was just a call away, ready to back me up if things went south. Leslie would be close by, a witness to this family showdown. Dr. Martinez had even prepped a sealed assessment just in case. I chose my outfit with care. A conservative blue suit that screamed professionalism, a stark contrast to the chaotic emotions swirling inside me. I packed a folder with damning evidence of their scheming alongside proof of my own competence. The night before the confrontation, my mom's text fluttered in like a calm before the storm. "Darling, we're having a small family gathering tomorrow at 2. Just a few relatives and friends who care about you. It would mean so much to us." I replied with a simple, "I'll be there at 2. What they didn't know was that I was stepping into that living room armed, not as the victim they expected, but as a warrior ready to reclaim my narrative. They thought they had the upper hand, orchestrating weeks of manipulation to snatch control of my life. But I had spent days plotting my comeback, determined to flip the script on our relationship. As I settled into bed that night, a wave of serenity washed over me. Tomorrow would crack open our family dynamics, potentially changing everything. But I felt a spark of liberation. No longer would I be the compliant daughter. This was my chance to confront the ties that had bound me for far too long. The air was thick with tension as I walked through those familiar doors. Rain pattered against the windows, the scent of wet earth mingling with the robust aroma of coffee. I stepped into the living room, a battlefield cloaked in silence. My parents exchanged glances filled with a mixture of feigned concern and calculated strategy. And then it happened. As I presented my meticulously gathered evidence, my heart racing, a voice broke through the hush. Max, my once silent sibling, spoke up. His voice was steady, revealing detailed texts that turned my world upside down. I wasn't the only one gathering proof. What did it mean? Suddenly, I felt the floor shift beneath me. Max's motives were murky, flooding the room with distrust. Was I part of a larger scheme? The walls felt as if they were closing in, and my thoughts spiraled. As I stared at my family, the depth of betrayal began to dawn on me. Was my life just one elaborate ruse? The lines of trust blurred, leaving me teetering. But one thing was clear. After all those years living in their shadow, I was ready to reclaim my narrative. This was the moment where clarity met chaos. Everything hinged on that conversation, and the truth was about to be exposed. I wasn't backing down. The scent of cinnamon rolls wafting from the kitchen jolted Ila Monroe back in time. She was a child again, holding her mom's hand, feeling that safety was a forever thing. Sunlight danced off polished wood, and her dad's laughter filled the air, wrapping around her like a warm hug. But now, those same aromas twisted into something unsettling. Her fingers gripped the leather portfolio tightly. Memories flooded back, sharpened by the realization that what once felt like comfort was now a mask for manipulation. Today was the day. The day she would stand in her truth, armed with evidence, ready to demand the respect and autonomy she deserved. Sunday dawned with that perfect autumn weather her mom would have called auspicious. A clear blue sky, a gentle breeze, and just cool enough for the cashmere sweater she wore beneath her blazer. Arriving at her parents' house at exactly 2 p.m., she noticed the extra cars lining the street. Aunt Susan's sedan, her dad's colleague Robert's SUV, and a sleek luxury car she guessed belonged to Dr. Winters. They had assembled their intervention team, just as outlined in the document she had discovered. Taking a deep breath, Layla retrieved her portfolio and approached the front door. Before she could knock, it swung open, revealing her dad. His expression was a careful mask of casual welcome, but the tension around his eyes betrayed him. "Layla, right on time," he said, ushering her inside. "Everyone is in the living room." What greeted her was exactly as she had anticipated. The furniture was arranged in a loose circle, creating a facade of comfort that felt more like a tribunal. Her mom sat in her favorite armchair, wearing a practiced look of concern. Brooke Sutton perched nervously on the sofa beside Aunt Susan and Uncle Frank. The Johnsons, family friends, sat stiffly by the window, and in a chair slightly apart from the others sat a distinguished-looking man in his 60s, silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, a leather notebook open on his lap, Dr. Harrison Winters, ready to assess a patient he had never met. "Layla, thank you for coming," her mom began, her voice warm but rehearsed. The air was thick with tension. Layla felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on her, but she was no longer the compliant daughter. She was ready to confront the ties that had bound her for too long. As she prepared to present her meticulously gathered evidence, her heart raced. This was it, the moment where clarity met chaos. The truth was about to be exposed, and she wasn't backing down. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, a voice broke through the silence. Max, her once silent sibling, spoke up, his voice steady, revealing detailed text that turned her world upside down. She wasn't the only one gathering proof. What did it mean? Suddenly, the floor felt like it was shifting beneath her. Max's motives were murky, flooding the room with distrust. Was she part of a larger scheme? The walls felt like they were closing in, and her thoughts spiraled. As she stared at her family, the depth of betrayal began to dawn on her. Was her life just one elaborate ruse? The lines of trust blurred, leaving her teetering on the edge. But one thing was clear. After all those years living in their shadow, she was ready to reclaim her narrative. Everything hinged on that conversation, and the truth was about to be revealed. The night felt electric, heavy with unspoken words and hidden agendas. Ila Monroe took a seat, the anticipation swirling around her like the smell of rain on dry pavement. Memories rushed in. She could almost smell the lavender from her mom's hand lotion. It was a scent that filled the air years ago when the living room buzzed with concern, masking a tension she could almost taste, bittersweet, metallic on her tongue. As she sat across from Dr. Winters, anxiety gripped her gut, recalling her dad's fingers drumming the tabletop. Their eyes avoided hers, focused instead on each other, masking daggers as they veiled parental care. Betrayal always carried its own flavor, and it left her feeling queasy. "Why are we really here?" Layla's question hung in the air like a fog. Her mom exchanged a glance with Dr. Winters, who gave a barely perceptible nod. "Darling," her mom began, voice dripping with practiced concern, "we're here because we love you." But love felt counterfeit tonight. "You've been working too much, isolating yourself from us," her dad added, hands clasped tightly between his knees. "It's concerning." In that moment, she could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down like an anchor. "What's the real purpose of this consultation?" she pressed, challenging the facade they had constructed. Dr. Winters, smile wavering, played his part. Just providing perspective, Miss Monroe. Perspective. She could sense the tightrope of distrust forming between her and her family, the walls inching ever closer. As her heart raced, she wondered, was she simply a pawn in their scheme? The revelation felt like a ghost, haunting her every thought. Moments stretched like taffy and she held her ground. This time, she wouldn't be a compliant daughter. Finally, as uncertainty twisted her stomach, she was ready to expose the truth of their betrayal. The moment of clarity met chaos, and she was determined to reclaim her narrative. Everything hinged on what she would say next, and she wouldn't back down. Ila Monroe sat in the hushed clinic, the air thick with secrets while memories crept in. The sweet, resinous scent of her childhood attic whirled in her mind, light filtering through dusty windows, illuminating a sanctuary of hidden truths. Ancient suitcases scraped against the wooden floor. The thrill of writing down her family's unfiltered realities pulsed through her. But even then, she felt a tight knot of anxiety in her gut as laughter echoed from downstairs. Was it genuine or an act? Her dad's laugh felt scripted. Her mom's praise came with an undertone of something sinister. Years later, that attic became her trigger. Her sanctuary mirrored her reality. Someone was always performing, and she was tired of being the pawn in their game. "Cassandra," her parents urged, their voices a mix of false concern and orchestrated love. "You may be experiencing early stages of a stress-induced delusional disorder," Dr. Winters interjected, his tone oddly soothing. It was a script she didn't agree to, one that pushed her further into a corner. "Consider taking time off work. You could stay with us while pursuing treatment." Her heart raced. "And my apartment?" she asked, the words cutting through the tension. Her dad's relief was palpable. "We should rent it out," he suggested eagerly. "It was all too convenient. What if I decline?" The room grew silent, the air electric with unspoken threats. She could practically hear her own heartbeat. Her mom's voice, carefully calibrated, leaned in. "We hope it won't come to more formal measures." Layla's pulse quickened, the shock on their faces confirming their fear of her awareness. She took a breath, remembering all the hidden agendas that had shaped her life. "So, you were prepared to seek temporary conservatorship?" "Layla, you don't understand," her dad stammered, but she cut him off. "Let me get this straight," she said, flipping open her portfolio with purpose. "You think I'm delusional based on nothing but your own fear? You've consulted with a doctor who's never met me? And you've planned this entire scheme?" The silence was suffocating. The air felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. "You've even withdrawn $40,000 for this project. You've scheduled meetings with your lawyer. You're turning my life into this?" Every calculated move they made pulled her closer to the brink, but she wouldn't be pushed around anymore. Determined, she met their gazes head-on, her voice steady. "I won't be your puppet anymore." The color drained from my mom's face. My dad stared at his hands. Brooke Sutton looked as though she might be sick. "These are exactly the kinds of paranoid delusions we are concerned about," Dr. Winters interjected smoothly, though I noted he appeared less certain than before. "Are they delusions, Dr. Winters?" I asked, removing a stack of documents from my portfolio. "Because I have copies of the intervention plan my Brooke Sutton stored in the cloud. I have recordings of phone conversations where my family discusses having me declared incompetent. I have screenshots of browser histories showing searches for how to sell property with power of attorney. I have an email from my mom to Aunt Susan discussing filing paperwork while I am still showing some awareness." I placed each piece of evidence on the coffee table as I mentioned it. The room had gone completely silent. "I also have these." I continued revealing another set of documents. "A complete neuropsychological evaluation performed 3 days ago by Dr. Elizabeth Chen, confirming I have no cognitive impairments or signs of any mental health condition that would affect my judgment." A letter from my therapist, Dr. Lydia Martinez, whom I have been seeing monthly for 2 years, attesting to my mental stability. Letters from my supervisor and colleagues confirming my exemplary professional performance. And, finally, a financial audit of my accounts, demonstrating consistent, responsible money management. I turned to Dr. Winters directly. You should know, Doctor, that providing a professional opinion on someone you have never examined violates ethical guidelines for psychiatrists. I have already filed a complaint with the medical board regarding your involvement in this situation. He powled visibly, gathering his notes with shaking hands. Cassandra, my mom began, tears forming in her eyes. We only wanted to help you. Did you? I asked quietly. Or did you want to regain control over me? Was this really about my well-being or about your discomfort with my independence? My dad finally looked up, shame evident in his expression. We convinced ourselves we were helping you. He admitted, his voice barely audible. But looking at all this, I cannot deny we went about it completely wrong. Brooke Sutton burst into tears. I was jealous, she confessed suddenly. You have this amazing career, this beautiful apartment. Mom and Dad are always talking about how successful you are, I thought. I thought if you had problems, maybe they would notice me more. The admission hung in the air, painful in its honesty. The family friends, the Johnsons, stood up awkwardly. We think this is a private family matter, Mrs. Johnson said. We were told this was about helping Cassandra with work stress. We had no idea about any legal actions or forced treatment. I believe my services are no longer required, Dr. Winter said stiffly, gathering his belongings. Mrs. Miller, I suggest you contact my office to discuss the implications of this situation. As they departed, leaving only family in the living room, I felt a strange sense of calm descend. The confrontation I had feared for days was unfolding better than I could have hoped. Their plan had collapsed under the weight of evidence and external perspective. I want to be very clear, I said to my remaining family members. What you planned to do was not just hurtful, it was potentially illegal. You conspired to have me declared incompetent without any medical basis with the intent to control my assets. We never meant to hurt you, my mom whispered. All pretense gone. Intentions do not erase impact, I replied. For years, you have manipulated and controlled me, dismissing my feelings and autonomy. This was simply the most extreme version of a pattern that has existed my entire life. What happens now? My dad asked, looking genuinely lost. I gathered my evidence back into my portfolio. That depends on you. I am willing to consider rebuilding our relationship, but only with significant changes. I will not be gaslit, manipulated, or controlled. I will not tolerate having my boundaries violated or my autonomy questioned. And if we cannot accept those terms, my mom asked a hint of her usual steel returning. Then you will have chosen control over connection, I said simply, and I will proceed with my life without you in it. The ultimatum hung in the air, reshaping the family dynamic that had existed for 27 years. For the first time, I was not the one being told what to do. I was the one setting the terms. As I stood to leave, Brooke Sutton reached for my hand. I am so sorry, Cass. Truly, I do not expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you might consider it. Her sincerity surprised me. Perhaps this painful revelation had created an opportunity for authenticity that had been missing from our relationship for years. I hope so too, I replied honestly. I walked out of my parents' house, not in anger or defeat, but with the calm certainty that comes from standing firmly in your truth. Whatever happened next, the old patterns had been broken irreversibly. The future of our relationship remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. I would never again allow anyone to make me doubt my own reality. The weeks following the confrontation were eerily quiet. I returned to work, threw myself into a complex new case, and waited. Part of me expected legal retaliation despite the collapse of their initial plan. Another part expected immediate, desperate attempts to repair the relationship on their terms. Instead, there was silence. In that silence, I began my own journey through the complex emotions their betrayal had triggered. Grief came first, deep and surprising in its intensity. I mourned not just the recent betrayal, but the relationship I had always wanted and never truly had. In the hush of Dr. Martinez's office, Ila Monroe's heart raced as she finally opened the family journal she'd avoided for years. The pages seemed to vibrate in her hands, a musty scent filling her senses, the weight of their family history pressing down on her like a storm cloud. Was she about to revisit the same old manipulation? As she turned the page, expecting the same tired narrative, something unexpected leaped out at her, a cryptic entry that flipped everything upside down. Her dad's words revealed a shocking truth. He had sabotaged her brother, not her. Just like that, Layla's world tilted on its axis. The anger that had simmered within her began morphing, tangled and raw, as if a new theory about her family's power struggles was being written right before her eyes. This wasn't just a simple story of betrayal. It was twisted, layered, darker than she ever could have imagined. Breaking free of her family's manipulation had always been Layla's goal, but discovering this new revelation left her in a whirlwind of mixed emotions. What was the real cost of their schemes? Were her perceptions of herself built on their deceit? That night, as the rain gently tapped against her window, she found clarity. She missed the little girl who yearned for unconditional love, the teenager always striving for unattainable perfection, and the young woman struggling to trust her own instincts. Anger bubbled up, cleansing and burning hot, reminding her of the importance of her boundaries. During her sessions with Dr. Martinez, she explored this rage and found its roots in her family's manipulative game. "Your anger is valid and important," Dr. Martinez said gently. "It tells you when you've been wronged." Weeks passed after that painful confrontation with her family. Silence stretched out like an empty road, and in that quiet, Layla began to process the complex feelings their betrayal had stirred. Grief washed over her unexpectedly, deep and raw. She mourned not just their schemes, but the relationship she had longed for, yet never truly owned. 3 weeks later, a text from her Brooke Sutton, pierced the silence. "I know words can't fix this, but I'd like to talk." Meeting halfway at a coffee shop felt surreal. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension, but they bravely dove into the depths of their fractured bond. "I've always envied you," Brooke Sutton admitted, her latte cradled tightly in her hands. "Everything comes so easily for you." "Nothing comes easily," Layla replied softly. "I just learned that showing struggle meant giving Mom ammunition." Brooke Sutton's eyes widened, a flicker of understanding passing between them. Could it be? They were both trapped in the same dysfunctional cycle, but simply fighting their battles in different ways? 3 hours flew by as they peeled away layers of envy and resentment, slowly uncovering the genuine connection beneath. The journey was just beginning. Would they emerge stronger together, or would the shadows of the past continue to haunt them? Only time would tell. But for the first time, Layla embraced the possibility of healing, free from the cages of family deception. For perhaps the first time we spoke as adults, neither of us playing the roles assigned to us in childhood. "I am seeing a therapist now," she told me as we prepared to leave. "I want to understand why I was willing to hurt you to please Mom. That is not who I want to be." My dad reached out next, asking to meet for lunch. He looked older than I remembered, shoulders slightly stooped under the weight of shame. "I have always been the peacekeeper," he said after we ordered. "I thought that made me the good guy, the reasonable one. I never realized that by avoiding conflict I was enabling behavior that hurt you. You taught me that my feelings mattered less than keeping the peace," I said quietly. "That pattern followed me into other relationships." He flinched but nodded. "I failed you as a dad. I cannot change the past, but I am trying to learn a different way forward. Your mom and I have started seeing a marriage counselor. I am learning to set boundaries instead of just smoothing things over. My mom was the last to reach out nearly 2 months after the confrontation. Her text was formal, almost businesslike. I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you in person. We met at a restaurant of my choosing a neutral space where neither of us held home court advantage. She arrived precisely on time, impeccably dressed as always, but there was a new uncertainty in her manner. I have been doing a lot of thinking, she began after the waiter took our orders, and working with a therapist, which is not something I ever thought I would do. What prompted that? I asked. Your dad insisted, actually. He said he would not continue in our marriage unless we both got help. A wry smile touched her lips. Apparently, he can set boundaries when properly motivated. The admission surprised a laugh out of me. I have not been a good mom to you, she continued, her voice steady. The room is tinged with the warm aroma of turkey, but all Ila Monroe can think of is the suffocating weight of expectation. She remembers those dinners, the laughter that danced on razor's edge, the way her mom's perfume mingled with tension, heavy like a storm cloud. Whenever anyone mentioned Layla's promotion, she caught that flicker in her mom's eye, the glint of jealousy masked by a facade of pride. Can you believe it? Even now, the scent sparks a familiar ache, a longing woven with suspicion. Is that pride, or something darker lurking beneath the smile? The truth has always been hidden in plain sight, and maybe, just maybe, it's time to pull back the curtain. Fast forward to a restaurant, a neutral ground where history hangs between them like a ghost. I've been doing a lot of thinking, her mom begins, voice steady yet fragile. Layla waits, heart pounding, as her mom reveals a confession that cuts deeper than any knife. I thought I was preparing you for the world, but I was just scared. It's a revelation that shatters the perfect facade she had built around her childhood. You succeeded in ways I never dared to, her mom continues, each word like a brick dropped into a river of regret. Hours slip by in that small restaurant, revealing the cracks in their familial bonds. They dig up years of misunderstandings, unraveling a lifetime of pain. Are they really just getting started, or can they actually find healing? Family therapy becomes their shared lifeline over the next 6 months. It's messy, painful. Old habits claw to resurface, but new patterns emerge like fragile sprouts through concrete. Layla sees her mom, newly vulnerable, listening without judgment. Her dad, once the peacekeeper, finds his voice, determined to speak up rather than smooth things over. The sisters, Layla and Brooke Sutton, shift from rivalry to genuine support. And just like that, by Thanksgiving, they step into a new chapter, an unlikely family gathering filled with hope, laughter echoing without the sharp edge of past betrayals. Can they finally embrace the truth that binds them together? Only time will tell if this fragile connection can withstand the weight of their shared history. The difference between that explosive dinner at the family table and this moment. Day and night. The previous meal had been a theater of secrets and agendas, a performance where every word was measured. But tonight felt raw, real, and occasionally uncomfortable, yet it pulsed with honesty. My mom still attempted to control the vibe of the meal, but when I gently called her out, something shifted. She actually chuckled. Old habits, she admitted. Thanks for the reminder. A moment like this would have seemed impossible, but then Dad leaned in, breaking the silence as the conversation threatened to spin toward the fraught. We need to tackle this head on, he declared, responding to my mom's offhand comment about my work hours. That sounds like concern creeping into control. Brooke and I shared quick, surprised looks. Could he really be taking a stand at last? As we settled around the table, I felt it. Though the past was etched in scars, the future of who we could become was finally being rewritten. The painful truths had cracked open a family dynamic long stuck in dysfunction, allowing space for something healthier to blossom. Let's raise a glass, I suggested, my heart racing, to difficult truths and fresh starts. To boundaries and respect, Dad added, firm and clear. To genuine connections, Brooke chimed in, her voice steady, and my mom, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, concluded, to a family becoming what it always could have been. The clink of our glasses rang out, a clear note amidst the thick air of genuine connection. We weren't healed yet, not by a long shot. Old patterns would creep back in, and trust takes time to rebuild. But for the first time, we were showing up as ourselves, not just roles we'd always played. The hardest lesson from this tumultuous chapter? It's about summoning the courage to stand in your own truth. Even when the rest of the world tries to twist your narrative, never forget, you are the author of your own story. Realizing someone's manipulating you is tough, especially when it's family. It's all about trusting what you see, even when others try to flip the script. Building your own life? That means setting boundaries and having the guts to stick by them, even with those you love. True connection thrives on mutual respect for each other's autonomy. Have you ever faced off against someone trying to twist your reality? How did you deal with it? Share your stories. This journey of standing up for yourself isn't easy, but it's also transformative. If this hit home, consider giving it a thumbs up. Let's spread the word to those grappling with family dynamics. Remind them they're not alone. Thanks for being part of this story. Always trust your own truth, because that's the reality that matters most.